Hi there. Welcome to the Lattice episode 117. Ever since 3D Heal's inception in 2017, 3D biofabricated bone replacement has been a recurring theme in our virtual events, startup pitches, and private conversations. With thousands of publications to date and close to a dozen biofabrication startups in the space, just how soon can patients actually access this? Today, I spoke with Monica Wellejus, the Chief Commercial Officer of Ossiform, previously known as Particle 3D. We discussed how her company is working to commercialize the first 3D printed resorbable bone substitute to the US market. Enjoy. Please listen to the disclaimer at the end of this podcast. Monica, good to see you again. I think you were just in our webinar very recently presenting Ossiform, but I think many still want to know just a little bit more about the company and about your own personal journey. I read your interview with us. It's really inspiring and fascinating, but I don't think many people actually dig that far to read the written interview. So I might as well just do this podcast and learn more. Now, first of all, tell us a little bit about Ossiform so we have a context.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me, Jenny. I'm glad that I'm able to contribute just a little bit to your amazing platform that is 3D Hills. But yeah, I'm the CCO of Ossiform. We are a British-Danish medtech company that develops 3D printed bioactive bone substitutes with an aim to solve the problems of inconsistency in bone healing outcomes and permanent foreign body implantation by providing these reliable structural ceramics that are 3D printed to allow orthopedic surgeons to reconstruct and heal their patients without struggling with poor and variable graft quality or the patient concerns and pain that often come with permanent hardware. So that's the goal.
Fantastic. Ever since I founded 3D Hills almost 10 years ago, 3D printed bone has always been around, but different companies and different people are working on the subject. Like you said, many people have published papers in this subject, but still, as we will see soon, this is still a journey. We are close, but not there yet. Now, before we dig into the technology side of things, I just want to learn a little bit more about your origin. Now, did you grow up to want to heal people's bone?
Not at all. It didn't really cross my mind. Yeah, I do not have a technical background. So it was a bit of a coincidence. I have a background in business language and culture. I worked part-time in social healthcare when I was younger and got an interest in the healthcare space. And during my studies, I then discovered that we had this amazing company called Particle 3D back then in the city where I live and where I studied. And I thought that sounds amazing. So I applied for a job and I got it and still working there and very happy about that.
So you were the marketing director, right, when you got hired to Particle 3D and now Asaform. But then now you're the chief commercial officer. Isn't it usually the other way around, as you first have a chief commercial officer and then marketing and sales?
Yeah, I think the moving into the CCO role for me was a natural progression as the company matured to another level of commercial readiness because yeah, we have been doing sales and marketing for many years because we launched this research line of products before or in the process of getting our medical devices to market. So we have been doing a lot, but now we are at a whole new stage where we are planning to go into the US market.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's a good segue into the company and technology. So what is the fundamental technology behind Ossiform?
So our technology is based on beta tricalcium phosphate, which is a ceramic powder that has been used clinically for the past 40 years, but primarily in non-structural forms like paste and granules. And we take the powder and mix it with fatty acid, which allows us to print with it. So we extrude it and print all kinds of bone substitutes And when they have been printed, we then burn off the fatty acid again through sintering, and that leaves this pure ceramic part. And so beyond the shape that we can obviously leverage the 3D printing technology to print different shapes, we can also control the structure with dense parts and more porous parts to match the needs of the indication.
And you say you now have a product. Are you generating revenue from these products?
We do have a modest revenue from our research line. It's for research use only. We launched these discs or scaffolds that are bone mimicking 3D cell culture systems for bone researchers.
Okay. And so does that mean you know every bone researcher in the world?
Unfortunately, not. I would love to, but I don't. I know quite a few around Europe and one in South America and a couple in the US, but yeah.
And so what are the terms and conditions to be able to use your scaffold? Let's say I'm the researcher somewhere listening to this podcast. How do I get a piece of this?
Well, you can reach out to us, go to our website and reach out to us. If you're based in the US, we have a lovely US distributor. Um, so yeah, there are a few different options, but we are really working to make our technology accessible and available in different areas through this research line. So we're more than happy to, discuss research collaborations. But yeah,
So this research line is already a solid printed form, is already the final form. It does not need to be sinistered, or how do you say this? Centering, no
yes,
centering needed afterwards, right? It's already a final
yeah.
disk that's hard. Okay, so you can ship basically directly from Denmark to anywhere. Now, your second product is even more exciting, but is not really on the market yet. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the company was started with an aim to supply these bone substitutes to help patients that have bone defects, for an example, bone defects deriving from traumatic injury or disease, or that was the goal of the company right from the beginning. But it is a long process of getting medical devices to market. It's a class 3 implantable device in Europe, and it's a class 2 risk device in the US. And therefore we chose to move toward the US market first. And now we are anticipating submitting our 510(k) within the next couple of months, and hopefully we'll get the clearance to be able to sell these first orthopedic bone substitutes, and they are for foot deformity correction, which is
Thanks for the clarification. Yeah. Now, we have a lot of implants. We have titanium implants, we have PEEK implants, we have sometimes PCL implants that I heard people doing soft tissue reconstructions. Why do we need another implant with ceramic base?
yeah, it's a good question because there are a lot of solutions out there. Titanium, we can start there. It's strong and it's great at many things, but it's biologically passive. It stays in the body permanently and it's much harder than bone. And therefore, there are some long term risks that come with that, including risks of tissue damage and inflammation. We also have other options like hydroxyapatite based solutions, which are bioactive but resolve very slowly, sometimes incompletely. And with beta tricalcium phosphate that we use, we can hit the balance supporting bone ingrowth while also getting replaced and really letting the defect regenerate to its former composition.
Hmm. And your implant, it sounds like, is mostly non-load bearing, bony defect is the best.
Yeah, that's right.
Now, you mentioned bioabsorption. How long does it take to absorb the implant? Is it ever, I mean, is it ever going to be completely absorbed at some point?
Yes, it would be. We do not have any clinical data yet, but based on
Hmm.
preclinical studies, this is what we've seen. And the resorption rate, or the time to complete resorption and remodeling into natural bone, that would depend on patient conditions like age,
Hmm.
comorbidities and things like that. But it's what we've seen, for an example, in our pig mandible study, is that it was almost completely resorbed and remodeled into new native bone in 6 months.
Wow, that's really fast. That's faster than I thought. That's faster than some of the PCL that I knew, polymers. Yeah. And then, okay, so I know that you have this fatty acid mixed with TCP. Did you tinkering with the concentration of these to finally reach optimal? Or, I mean, do you have like a variety of solutions by different mixture of these, or just like one type of concentration that's the best that you pick? Let's say someone who has diabetes or different kind of biological needs, like or different body parts, like did you guys play around with these different concentrations?
So we do not have different concentrations, like the material formulation is the same every time, but we do adapt um, the structure according to
Printing
the,
process.
yeah,
Yeah, got it. The design.
exactly, the design. And it's not only the shape, it can also be other factors that you can modify to match the demands of the specific indications. So that's really what we specialize in at Ossiform, leveraging the 3D printing technology for that.
So I'm assuming right now you're not really doing completely customized or personalized implants yet. Is this something that you guys thought about?
Yes, we have thought about that, and it's really what we aim to do when the company first started, but quickly found out that in 95% of cases, this is not what the surgeons want or need. They want something they can grab off the shelf, and it's just too time consuming as it is today. I think that with AI and everything that's happening right now, that could make patient specific solutions more available and less costly. But until now, it's really been a limitation that if you design a file, you need to get it approved by a surgeon that may have some changes to it, send it back, and then all of a sudden you've spent several weeks
Yeah.
on a design, and then you have to print it and ship it. So there are still some challenges in that space.
Yeah, in the 3D printing community, there are a lot of people who are very enthusiastic about personalized implants. And I understand why, because it does seems very accessible because of 3D printing. How long did it take you guys to realize this is really not commercially feasible? And what was the struggle like? I mean, was there like people throwing cakes at each other, arguing one way or another?
No, not at all, actually. It did take some time, but it was really when we started expanding our discussions with the surgeons, the end users, that we found out that we had to pivot. And that's, I think, around it was around 22 that we decided that this is what we.
What year was 2018 was the funding of the company?
Yes, it was actually founded in 2017, but in the
Okay.
first year it was only our founders that were doing some early validation and trying to raise the seed round, and then they hired our CEO in 2019 and really started expanding operations at that point.
Hmm. Okay, and then you said you guys realized that you should pivot in 2020, 22, you said.
Yeah, I think it was around that time that we started to have a lot of conversations with surgeons. We also had an initial focus on oral maxillofacial surgery, which
Right.
made sense at the time. But yeah, as our conversations with surgeons expanded, it became clear that the broader and commercial opportunity were in orthopedics. There was simply a better product market fit
Hmm.
and a greater need for a solution like ours.
And when you say many conversations, how many are we talking about? And how did you realize you need to start from a craniofacial surgeon down to the foot surgeon. I mean, they're pretty far apart.
They are. Well, we started getting a lot of requests from orthopedic surgeons actually that reached out to us because they were
Oh,
interested in what we were doing.
okay.
And I think we and we also attended conferences where we got into these conversations and really quickly were pointed towards many different indications like, have you looked into this? What about
Right.
this? I really need
Yeah.
something for that. And
Yeah.
that you could just feel another level of excitement, and you could feel that need for these very large patient populations within these different orthopedic areas.
So it does, you do have to listen very carefully to the market. It's basically market reaching out to you. Now, of all these ideas that you heard during that period of time when you're trying to focus, what are some of the crazy ideas that you guys passed on? I just want to listen. Something.
um, I think there is such a great interest in finding solutions that can replace some of all the metal that surgeons still rely on.
Right. Which is a lot,
And
actually. A lot of them.
it it is a lot, and they know that there are so many risks associated with it. If you get a joint replacement early in your life, you may need to get another one later in life, and you see sometimes, bone loss and stress shielding because the metal is so much harder than the bone. And while it would be amazing to be able to provide a solution like ours for that could completely regenerate into natural bone, it's not feasible to use bioceramics for very large indications
Hmm.
because it's not as strong at all as titanium is, for an example. So it would never replace like joint prostheses or something like that. And maybe that's some of the ideas that we have maybe discussed with some people, and we also hear a lot from patients that need better solutions and ask us if we can help them. And unfortunately sometimes you just have to say that that's not realistic.
Hmm. I know. You're not the first one who tell me about patient reaching out to startups wanting solutions. I mean, we sometimes get that too, and it's kind of hard to tell them directly, but you have to, and because they need to know the reality, but it's kind of hard to have that kind of conversation.
It is very hard because you often hear very personal stories from people that have. We've had people that have shared with us their entire history of, medical visits that have not gone as they would like, and their complications that they've experienced, and it's very hard to hear, and it's very hard when you cannot help them. But hopefully, we will be able to help a lot of patients very soon.
Absolutely. Now, have you thought about dental application? That seems small enough to print it. Have you thought about that market? I'm surprised that you're
Yeah.
not in that market.
Yeah, it's not something that we early on in when we considered the oral maxillofacial indications we did, but as we moved away from that, we also moved away from dental. Uh,
I see. So how did you eventually, so basically, did you collect a large amount of data to see which medical vertical has the biggest market? I mean, what was that conversation is like to really just hone down the foot part of the entire orthopedics industry?
yeah, I would say this decision was not based on where the largest market was, but where we believe the strongest product market fit was, need from surgeons, and where we believe that our technology has a high potential to benefit patients. We've always done what we believe is best in terms of our technology's potential for our company and obviously also for our investors. But yeah, foot surgery was just, it seemed like the ideal place to start because we had some surgeons that were really requesting this solution and are now waiting to get the opportunity to use it.
And what exactly does this implant look like in terms of what part of the foot or ankle does it support?
Yeah, so the first two products are wedges. It's called a cotton wedge and an Evans wedge. And the first one is, both of them are for flat foot deformity correction. And the first one is placed in the cuneiform bone, which is part of the forefoot. And the other one is part of the hind foot. It's an incision made in the heel bone where you cut out this wedge, place the wedge in the bone to correct an outward splaying foot or flat foot.
And how are people correcting these right now, traditionally?
They use either allograft, donor bone, or metal wedges.
Okay,
And
so allograft is from the patient's own body, right?
that's actually from a donor.
From a
That's
donor. Sorry, I always forget which one. Autologous is from the patient itself.
exactly. Yes.
Okay, so you have to get somebody else's bone, get in your body.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
not sure how I feel about that.
there are some patients that don't like the thought of that, but I don't think that's a major issue. But it's inherently variable because it's depending on the quality of the donor's bone, and it's also heavily processed when it gets to be implanted in another patient. So, but they are very, very widely used and also great for many things. But we just offer a synthetic, more consistent alternative
Hmm.
um, that can provide a compelling middle ground between the allograft and the permanent metal options.
Is this a fairly small or medium-sized market, or is what is the market size for this?
Well, it is a relatively large market. I think the total, well, if we just go beyond those two procedures. I think it's around the initial target market is around 100,000 procedures in the US annually.
Wow. Wow. I did not know we have so many flat feet and people who need surgery.
Actually, it's because you think of flat feet as something you're born with, right? Or some people are born with, but actually a lot of people get collapsing flat foot deformities when they are older, like in middle-aged patients, especially if some patients that are with age and with increased BMI, there are some
Mm.
risks of your feet flattening, and it can be very painful. So yeah, it's not only flat foot deformities that children are born with. It's also something you acquire in adulthood.
So of all these, the technology invention to iterations to now finally clarify the focus of commercialization, you must have had a lot of challenges. I mean, I can just name a few. One is fundraising. I saw your CEO, Thea, in SF quite a few times fundraising during JP Morgan previously. And you were probably with her, but I just didn't see you during those times. And two is regulation, the FDA regulation and EU. And then three is to, talk to the surgeons so that they can be open to use your. You want to just unpack some of these challenges. What do you tackle first of all these problems?
Yeah, it's a difficult question because they are all critical. In early fundraising, it's all about vision and credibility. You're asking investors to believe in the scientific foundation and the vision and the team's ability to execute. In our situation, I do believe it's been really great that we have a very experienced CEO that has done this multiple times before.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think of course that is difficult, but the adoption part is often underestimated. I think the market adoption part. So you ideally you don't want to change surgeon behavior. You want your solution to fit into their existing workflows or enhance them. And again, convincing the surgeon or the end user is not enough, especially in today's market. It's not enough at all. Beyond your work with the regulatory authorities and the end user, you must also know that administrative decision makers within institutions like hospitals are also very important,
Mm.
yeah, in the adoption decisions. So, yeah, but money is, of course, fundamental for you to move forward on a regulatory path, but you also need a regulatory strategy to raise money, and you need some voice of customer work. So it's all very critical.
Well, let's unpack this adoption part because I think this is like a big bottleneck for a lot of new devices. I mean, you're definitely new material, new process, new implant. I know that some surgeons reach out to you first. It sounds like there's a market demand. Obviously, those people who reach out to you probably are more open to use your implant, but that shouldn't be all the surgeons. So how do you get the other surgeons who are not aware of you be aware and be open to use your new device?
Yeah, it is it can be very challenging. We were fortunate that some reached out to us, but there are certainly also a lot of the people that we collaborate with today that did not reach out to us. We contacted them.
Hmm.
And I found that relationships are critical. And of course, you need to be very clear in the value that you're bringing and your communication to make sure that it resonates with them.
Hmm.
So getting in touch with them is probably the most difficult part because these people
Yes.
are so incredibly busy and they are in the OR all day or they are seeing patients all day. So it is very difficult. And I think our best strategy has been to, use the relationships you have and your network to get in touch with them and then conferences.
Hmm. Well, you're located in Europe, so maybe it's easier for you to say reach out some Danish surgeons because it's right around the corner, and European doctors. But how do you expand to the US market, which is further out and probably more important, I mean, in terms of the market cap?
Yeah, we did choose to go for the US market first. So our priority has been the US market right from
Okay.
the beginning. So actually, the far majority of all the collaborators we have and the physician champions, they are US based. And I think there may be some cultural differences and some differences in the market. I think it's sometimes easier to get Americans excited about new technology
Yeah.
than Europeans. So I've actually found that a little bit easier in the US, not necessarily getting in contact with them, but when you are in contact with them, getting them interested and engaged in new technology. I think that's easier in the US.
Yeah, I think fundraising is the same way. I don't know if you know who, I mean, I don't know if you interact with your investors on a regular basis, but I think most of your investors in Europe, right? Or British or UK.
Yeah, they are
Yeah.
British primarily.
Well, imagine you try to raise money in the US.
Yeah, that is what we want to do next time.
And so you're going through a 510K FDA clearance, right? You said it's going to get cleared this year, at the end of this year.
Yeah, that's what we expect.
Are you planning any clinical trials or in human studies post-market or something like that?
Yes, we are entering the market without any clinical data already. So that's a key priority for us as we enter the market, that we will gather real world evidence at our first US clinical sites. And in addition to that, we are also planning to set up clinical investigations internationally from 2027,
Okay.
both with an eye to further support adoption activities, but also to pursue the CE mark in Europe. Yeah, we do have several other products in the pipeline that I unfortunately cannot speak too much about
Okay.
because it's still confidential, but we are looking into other indications as well and working with surgeons on developing those. So yeah, the foot surgery market is a place to start, but we do in the years to come believe that we will be able to support many more physicians in different areas of orthopedic surgery, including trauma as well.
Trauma, that requires a very short turnaround time.
Yeah, but you also have some cases of non-acute trauma. But yeah, there are both options.
And you mentioned that your implant is really not good for large bone defect. Have you but you I think I saw some blogs on your website that talks about the large bone defects and how it can be eventually that problem can be solved. Do you anticipate either you guys or someone else in your same space will do that in the next couple years? I'm just kind of, since I'm not, as current as you are in terms of what the industry is like right now.
Yeah, I guess everything is possible, and you see new material developments all the time. So I would be surprised if we wouldn't see developments in that space as well within the next 10, 20 years. But it is definitely an area that could use some innovation, at least on the material side. And there are so many people that get joint replacements, both hips, knees, and shoulders. So it is very interesting space.
Hmm. Absolutely. So now is the forecast time for Ossiform in the next, let's just say 3, 5, 10 years. So 3 mean more recent, more near term, and then 10 is like very futuristic forecast. Where do you see Ossiform in the next couple years?
In the next couple of years, I see us expanding our footprint in the US and
Literally
establishing.
footprint.
Yeah,
Little.
you're right. And really, yeah, establishing Ossiform boots on the ground.
That's
And
right.
yeah. And then, yeah, really going into our first clinical use cases and clinical investigations. That's going to be huge.
Yeah.
And
And expensive, I would say, probably.
also expensive, yes, for sure. When we look further out into the future, we are also moving from orthopedics and into some spine applications. That is the plan. And another area of R&D activity that we are prioritizing is potential, yeah, point of care printing in the future. As we've seen in the dental industry, we imagine that more hospitals could eventually produce implants locally to reduce waiting time and logistics complexity. Like we talked about a little bit earlier, that now
Hmm.
also with AI, that
Yeah.
customization could become routine rather than an exceptional thing to give access to these very innovative solutions for more hospitals, more surgeons, and more patients.
Do you see you're gonna do something in EU market as well? I know that right now you're focusing on the US first. Is EU market also kind of on the to-do list?
It is, yeah. We are setting these clinical investigations up also to pursue approval under the MDR in Europe. So
Okay.
we will head for the European market next, and
Yep.
ultimately also outside of Europe and the US.
Well, let me know if you need some help with patient enrollment. I can give you a shout out always when you are
Thank you.
ready. Yeah. And so as an industry for 3D printing for bone, what do you see the industry is gonna go in the near term or longer term?
For bone printing, I
So
think,
far I've seen like only scaffolds. It was just
yeah,
inorganic mixtures. I haven't seen a whole lot of, I mean, I guess it's really hard and expensive to commercialize with some kind of cellular components to it.
yeah, that could evolve, but I think it's also incredibly challenging in terms of regulation, which
Hmm.
is a big hindrance right now. Like if you go into combination products or anything, and you have a PMA risk profile, it's not impossible at all, but it is, of course, a hindrance.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that there's no doubt that more customization will happen in the future. And yeah, perhaps also more combination products with printed bone that includes, it could also be pharmaceuticals, or like you said, cells,
Absolutely.
or
Yeah.
other materials that can be incorporated into these more bone-like materials.
So you mentioned that you were not a technical person. Now you're actually the chief commercial officer for a totally technical startup. Do you have any advice for people who are, didn't go in school for technical majors, and how can they transition to work for a tech startup?
Yeah, I would say do not be intimidated by the science. Your value is in translation, strategy, and execution. So, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Do ask questions until things are clear, because it can actually also be a real value that you force this clarity into the company, whether that be founders, engineers, scientists, to really communicate what the technology is and what it can do. Yeah, so don't be afraid of it, even though it might sound really complex.
Absolutely. I also like the fact that you talk about clarity. Actually, in one of my other interviews, the founder said something that I also agree with. It says clarity is kindness. So the more clear you are, the better it is to your team. So I absolutely are on board with that. Also, I see you in all kinds of conferences, like all the time, especially on social media. You were just in the US going through a program, right?
Yeah, you're right. I was in Tennessee, and that was a great opportunity to visit a bunch of health systems and hospitals in Nashville and Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm part of this. We are part of this ABHI US Accelerator program.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I was there, and also going to the East Coast and to Texas later in the year.
Wow, for the same program?
Yes. Yeah.
So what was your experience talking to the US healthcare systems?
There were so many great learnings there. I think it's interesting to get to speak with all these administrative decision makers. That's what this trip was really about, meeting with the CFOs, chief innovation officers, supply chain management, and they bring another perspective to new device adoption. They are all US hospitals are under severe financial pressures at the
Mm-hmm.
moment, so they
Yeah.
really need to think about, return of investment if they consider deploying new technology. So that was really interesting to hear their point of view about how they think about that. And also that it's not just your return of investment, but it's also your speed, or how fast can you really make an impact or a change for the organization, because everything is changing so rapidly right now.
And regarding your implant specifically, did you hear anything from these guys in terms of their thought that you think you could either change or implement or something like that?
No, I think we got some really great feedback also, that we are doing the right things and being proactive about thinking not only about what the surgeons need, but also what these other stakeholders need to see. It's also, reimbursement guides and support to make sure that claims run smoothly through their systems, and really just highlighting the value to them.
Yeah, no, I'm glad that you're talking to these people. Honestly, I did not know until this episode when I'm talking to you now. Now I'm gonna go do some research and see what I can learn about these folks because it sounds like a key component to getting a device accepted into the market.
It is so many hospitals now. I think it's most medium and large hospitals that have value analysis committees that consist of different stakeholders that are both clinical, financial, supply chain, that make decisions about new products and technologies. So it's definitely crucial, but it also varies from institution to institution. It's different to sell into an ambulatory surgery center than
Hmm.
a large health system. But nevertheless, there are different stakeholders that you must prepare to tailor your message to. And not all stakeholders value your product the same.
Hmm.
or, appreciate the same things.
Absolutely. Now, it sounds like you're almost never in Denmark, Monica.
Fortunately, I am also in Denmark a lot. I enjoy traveling to the States, and I like that I get the opportunity to do that, but I'm also with our team here in Denmark a lot of the time, obviously.
But still, you're probably one of the most energetic person I know. I mean, even just listening to what trips you have coming up, it kind of just like I was like, I'm not sure I can do that. How do you how do you unwind or relax to, I guess maybe you're energized by all these travel. So
Yeah,
how do you unpack or somehow separate yourself from work?
Um, yeah, I will say on the way over there and while I'm in the US, I am very energetic. But when I get home, I'm super tired and jet lagged. Maybe because I go for a week in the US with not that much sleep. But yeah, I for an example, on my trip to Tennessee and back to Denmark from Tennessee, I watched this amazing series called The Pit. I don't
Oh,
know if you've
that's really, I love that show. I'm only on episode 3, but I love that show already.
It is a very, very good series. So yeah, I like to watch series and movies, and when I find a good series on the plane, that's like a jackpot because then it gets a little more fun and manageable to sit in a plane for 8 hours. That's something I watched recently and really, really enjoyed.
And how do you get yourself up to date with everything? Either the technology, the healthcare, news, like how do you feed your updates?
I listen to a lot of podcasts, both to consume news, but also with work. For an example, I like a podcast by Omar Khatib called State of MedTech, where I follow industry trends and also um, read a lot on LinkedIn. There are so many great content creators on there
Yes,
now, I think.
LinkedIn is great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Do you have any Danish podcast that you listen to?
we have one that is called Genstart, which is a
Okay,
daily podcast that provides an in-depth interview about a topic that is interesting at the moment. It can be anything more or less, but yeah, it's something I listen to almost daily.
cool. Now, for one is how do the listeners get in touch with you? Number one. Number two is who do you want to connect to through our podcast?
Well, if there are any researchers out there interested in any bone-related stuff, please do feel free to reach out. You can find me on LinkedIn, and please feel free to connect on there, or you can also message me via email. My email is mw@ossiform.com.
That's pretty
And
conventional. I can also add that email in our show notes if you don't mind.
you're welcome to.
Okay, well, thank you, Monica, for spending the time with us. I learned a lot about Ossiform, and I really look forward to what's going to happen to the company soon.
Thank you.
This podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. The views expressed do not constitute medical or financial advice. The technologies and procedures discussed may not be commercially available or suitable for every case. Always consult with a licensed professional.